Right, guys, in this video I wanted to go over my favorite ways of tracking body composition change over time that is not something like a DEXA scan or MRI machine, things that are a little bit more costly. And we have some data that basically, unless you're getting like an MRI machine, those are very hard to get access to. Like DEXA can even be off by like 5% with telling you exactly what's going on with your body composition change. And the reason why this is important to understand is because whenever we are trying to change our body composition, we need to know how to essentially track it to know if we are actually moving in the direction that we want. And I'm going to really go over exactly how I track progress in cutting, maintaining, or bulking phases for each of my clients. So there are really three main tools that I like to use with my clients. Number one is going to be scale weight. Two is going to be a waist measurement, and then three is just going to be waist measurement slash pictures, and then three is going to be actual gym performance. So in a cut, in general, we're going to want to see the body weight go down over time, because that's going to mean that we are losing body tissue. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then over time, you want to look at your pictures and waist measurement in conjunction, because if you're getting leaner, your waist measurement should be going down over time. When you measure your waist, you want to be around your navel, your belly button. That's going to be the most consistent. Anything lower is going to be like, you're going to get your hips involved a little bit more, a little bit less, reflective of actual body composition change. And then just actual physique progress pictures. I recommend taking at least once a week in the same setting, and you can really see over time, you should be seeing some slow changes over time. So front facing one, side facing one, a back is a really good place to start. One thing about cutting, when you are a higher body fat percentage and you're looking at your progress pictures, is that you might not notice like a big difference at the higher body fat percentages. Let's say that you're 20+% or even 15+%, but especially 20+%, like you're not going to notice like a ton of detail changes, but you will notice like girth changes, where like your belly's less big, stuff like that, but you're not lean enough to really see details, so it's going to be less reflective as you get leaner. So basically, like I would use scale weight a little bit more as a proxy. Like the fatter that you are, the more heavy that you are, because you like to have more body fat. And there's going to be less water weight noise, because your body in general is probably not going to be as stressed out as when it gets down to leaner body fat percentages. So I would say like 12% or less is when I might start looking a little bit more at, how is the client actually looking, what's their waist measurement saying, and when I'm looking over that scale weight progress, because usually cortisol and water weight are going to become bigger factors in that. And then the last variable that I'm going to use is going to be your gym performance. So this is important in a diet, because we want to make sure we're not losing muscle mass. If we're losing muscle mass, we are increasing our risk of a rebound from our diet. So gaining too much body fat, and really just looking skinny and frail and not the way that we want to, at the end of the diet. We don't want to look skinny and like we haven't lifted weights. We want to look muscular and lean. And so what's really important to track is, instead of like, compound movements like a squat, bench, or deadlift, because especially as you lose more body weight, your leverages are going to change, and that can affect your strength. Looking over more single joint movements, so like a leg extension, a leg curl, a machine chest press, a lat pull down, things that aren't going to be as affected by leverage changes and more so by true muscularity changes. That's what I would look at a little bit more often in a deficit, to see are we retaining tissue or not. Likely, if the client is losing muscle, they are going to be seeing strength decrease on those more single joint exercises over time. And then that's when I would make changes to likely their volume to help them recover a little bit better. So again, scale weight, pictures slash waist measurement, and then gym performance. And that's how I apply to a cut. A maintenance phase, in general, I look at about a range on maintenance, because your body weights are going to fluctuate. Pretty normal about, I would give like a 4-pound range, like up or down. So like say that you want to maintain 200 pounds, just for simple numbers. Maintaining between 198 to 202 is what I would classify as maintenance for that body weight. Over time, it should be very stable. You should be looking very similar in the mirror. Sometimes people can experience recomposition if they are newer to training. but usually as you get more advanced, you can't expect much to happen at maintenance. If you do experience recomp, it's kind of a happy accident. And then gym performance should be absolutely staying stable and probably slowly going up at maintenance, because you should be eating enough to support your recovery and your training performance. Now in a bulk, this is where I would look over scale weight, probably slowly increasing over time, because we're trying to, like, if we're going in these deliberate phases of like saying like I'm fat loss dieting or I'm maintaining, or sorry, I'm fat loss dieting or I'm trying to gain muscle, like I do want to see scale weight movement, because that's going to give us a larger signal to our body that we need to actually adapt in one way or another. So I'm likely going to be looking for slow weight gain over time in general, 1 to 2 pounds per month for most people who are past the beginner stage. But I really pay close attention to waist measurement and pictures in this phase, because I do believe that you can gain muscle at a good rate without excessively spilling over into body fat. You will likely gain some body fat if you are trying to maximize muscle growth. It's just part of the deal. It's very hard not to. You might not notice it like immediately if you're doing it properly, but like slowly over time, like say like 6 months of bulking, you might notice, hey, I'm a little bit softer in this muscle group, whatever. But it should only be like over time. If you're like a couple months into your bulk and you're like, oh crap, like my waist measurement's way up, like I personally measure it with like how my belt fits with my Inzer belt. Like I also use like a tape measure sometimes too. But if I am feeling that my belt is getting too tight, my pants aren't fitting the same, and I'm gaining weight at a pretty good clip, that's probably telling me that my partitioning is spilling a little bit too much over into the body fat gains. And a good thing to think about is that if your goal and physique is like a certain level of leanness, you don't want to get that far away from it in the name of trying to gain muscle. Now, if you're just somebody that just doesn't care, like, you know, who gives a crap, like just focus on getting as strong or whatever as possible. But that's what you would want to look at, is, you know, waist measurement in particular, and then also just like visually how are you looking in the same lighting. As far as frequency of pictures in a bulk, I would probably recommend about like once a month is a good time, because anything less than that is just going to be too little time to really tell much changes. And then really important, if you are gaining weight and you're not getting stronger in the gym, you are just gaining body fat. Your training stimulus is inadequate, or you're doing too much volume. Something needs to be ironed out with your training, because you should be in a very good state of training and being able to add muscle mass and strength. In fact, I really do believe that as you get more advanced, it becomes close to impossible to experience predictable strength gains if you're not in a small surplus. So I'm really going to be looking at training performance going up over time, and then looking for slow weight gain over time, and then not seeing that waist measurement go up a lot. And this is, you know, you can get a DEXA scan or something like that if you really want to, but this is going to tell you essentially the exact same things. And I think that one thing I'm just going to remind everybody when using scale weight too is like, don't hyperfixate on that. Don't focus on the number. You have to look at the other things, because remember, like, you wouldn't care about how much you weighed if you look good, if you feel good. That's all secondary to like how much you weigh is all secondary to how you look and how you feel. So don't get too caught up in what the numbers are. You know, and what I mean by this is like, if you're bulking and you're just like, I just gotta gain weight, gotta keep gaining weight, but like you're getting fatter, you don't really feel that much better. Versus like you have a certain body weight before getting a certain rate, you felt good, your training was going well, etc. You have GI stress. That matters a lot more than pushing the scale as fast as possible, or having an end goal weight arbitrarily, or whatever, a deadline you have to reach, quote unquote. The same thing goes for like a deficit. Like if you're at a point in a diet where the diet fatigue is just so high where you're not able to recover, your life sucks. It's just the RPE is just way too high of the diets. Like, doesn't matter if you're like, I want to lose 5 more pounds. You should probably cut the diet there, because there's a lot more to life than just what a scale number says. And a big part of dieting, this will be a future video, is just if you have a very lean body fat percentage goal and you've never been close to that, you need to learn how to slowly like get down to different thresholds. So what I mean by that is if you've, you know, your leanest you've ever been is like 18% body fat, you know, let's just say this, you know, you're like, oh, I'm like 18% here. Then you get down to a little bit leaner, to like 15%. Probably want to like chill there for a little bit and know what that feels like. before you try going down to like 12% and chilling there, trying to maintain that, and maybe 10%, then 9%, like slowly easing your way into those lower body fat percentages instead of trying to just go from like 20% to like 10% in one diet. That tends to be a lot harder to sustain, and there'll be a larger change in hormones if you're natural. So hopefully that makes sense. Those are my favorite ways to track body composition change. Again, scale weight, waistband measurements, and as well as pictures, and then going to be overall training per performance. So hopefully this is helpful. If you guys have any questions, just ask me in the comments below.